Hope you can,
Oh, here we go.
hold on. Hope you can all hear me. So I have a few kind of opening remarks and some questions for us to consider. But then I would like it to be more of a workshop than a class, in the sense that I think there's an echo on this. I don't know where that's coming from, but can anybody else hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Judy, I think that might be your...
Yeah, maybe sometimes when people have like their phone and their computer, you get that sound. Yeah. Maybe if Judy could mute herself, that might help.
Yeah, we can just mute you for the moment until you're ready to share.
Okay. So that's good. Okay, so my thought today would be to present sort of a framework for thinking about what we might have to give. Last class was about thinking about things that we've been given. To my mind, this session is a chance for us to consider what we might have to give, or what gets in the way of even thinking about that question, which may be the more salient conversation. And then the third class, I'm hoping that we can come up with some strategies to help you put whatever plans crystallize in your mind into action. So that's kind of my thinking. So let me share my screen for a minute and just kind of give some opening remarks. So let me start this. Okay, so we have a map of where we started and where we're going. We last class talked about what we've been given. Today, I want to think about what we have to give. And then in our third class, I'm hoping we could focus on how. So as I said the first class, but I believe, it bears repeating. I think legacy is more than money, but of course, money is part of it. And I hope that we could talk some about interesting ways you can give what you have in that department. But I also want people to think about that it's more than that. It's love, it's memories, it's legacies, it's stories. So that's what I don't want to dismiss the money part. It's clearly a huge part of many of our legacies. But let's make it and other things today. So I found a poem that I thought was kind of apropos, at least to me it was, called "We Are Building the Ship as We Sail It" by a poet named Kay Ryan, who's a local poet and a Nobel poet laureate and a very well-respected poet. And I love her work because it's kind of short and there's a lot in it. If you unpack it, it seems simple at first, and then you just go, how did she do that? So I'm going to read it first and we can think about it for a minute. So the first fear being drowning, the ship's first shape was a raft, which was hard to unflatten after that didn't happen. It's awkward to have to do one's planning in extremis. In the early years, so hard to hide later, sleeking the hull, making things more gracious. So I don't know, to me, that's about how we're just continually revising and rethinking and reframing this life of ours, as we go along, and we start with some crazy assumptions. And as we get older and hopefully wiser, we have a chance to reframe and rethink that in a more gracious way. And that's kind of what I hope this workshop is about. So that's why I picked this poem today. So thanks to Barbara, who's out on this class. She gave me a great framework for thinking about how we might conceptualize what we have to give, which is 3 buckets of time, talent, and treasures, which I love. I like it's alliterative too. That makes the poet in me happy. But also I think it's a beautiful way of framing or like giving ourselves some buckets to put the things in that we might have to offer. So these are some questions that I want to ask, and then I'm going to tell you a story, and then we're going to take a little time to do some reflection. So here's a question. What can you offer that takes time, right? It could be teaching somebody to throw a baseball. It could be teaching someone to make sourdough bread. It could be sharing a favorite book or a story or taking a walk. I mean, there's a million things that fit into that bucket. Here's another question. This has to do with talent, right? So what are your unique talents? And I would consider these to be skills, obsession, or joys, right? Things that you just can't not do. And how could you share those? And then treasures, right? So what constitute a treasure? And I think we talked some about that last time, photographs, objects, and stories. And we kind of, I felt, ended up in this place where we thought, it's not so much the objects themselves, but the stories that enliven and enrich those objects, right? So, it wasn't the the paperweight, right? It was the story about it being in my uncle's apartment, and the only thing I liked to do there, because everything else was white and frightening and childless. So there's treasures to give, but that how we give them, I think, can make a big difference in how they're received. So those are the 3 buckets. And here's my story. It was in today's newspaper, which I thought was serendipitous and fantastic. So it was the Chronicle. And I would put this in a different bucket, which I would call accidental legacies, where somebody is just doing something that brings them joy, right? So this would be the talents. And then not expecting it to turn into anything except their own personal private joy harvesting. It turns out to be something really meaningful to a lot of people. So this is a picture of a new record that's coming out called The Village Out West. And it's field recordings of the 1960s California folk music scene. And the guy who did the tapes is named Alan Oakes. And I'm reading from the newspaper here, so just listen for a second. He just was a complete enthusiast, and he had a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and he was an engineer. So he was sort of thoughtful about what he was capturing and how he was capturing it. And he was just kind of everywhere, apparently, in the 60s. So here's some stories about Alan. Alan was a presence at several different kinds of festivals and gatherings, said Robbins, who knew Oakes during the last decades of his life. He was a large kind of hulking presence, and he didn't seem like the kind of person who would be able to slip in and out of social scenes. Yet he was sort of Zelig-like, a scenester who was able to show up at a lot of different places without being too in the way. That's how he got so many of these recordings. By the early 1970s, Oakes had stopped making tapes, and those he had collected were gathering dust in his attic. After his death, Oakes's wife, Marnie, contacted Robbins, an acquaintance from more recent years of the folk festival circuit, to see if there was anything to be done with them. She said, "I'm moving and I've got to get rid of the debris," Robbins recalled. I told her, "Send them along and we'll see what we've got." That launched Robbins onto a year-long project that occupied her during the height of the coronavirus pandemic. She consulted with Oakland's sound engineer, Wally McLean, to ascertain whether the tapes were even salvageable, a quest that began with the search for the right playback equipment and to clean them up to a professional level. With field recordings, there's not any soundboard or mixing, but Alan did it with such nuance and care, Robbins said. He made it in his business to plunk himself down in the very best possible spot in any given room. He wasn't a guy sitting in the back row saying, "Well, I'll see what we get." So this turned into a field recording that's coming out from Smithsonian Folkways Records, which I think is pretty great. I just wanted to make sure I have the woman who you were listening to. I believe she's I'm just looking for the description of her job. I think she's a curator at Folkways Records, which is, well, anyway, so this is coming out on Folkways. And what I love about the story is just the beauty of it, right? Like, he didn't do it for other people, he did it for himself, but he did it with his full attention and did it beautifully. And now, thousands of people will be able to hear this music that has been pretty much lost to time. Some of these people are famous, and some of these people were just like regional people who never became famous. And so it's like a time capsule. So I just love that story. And I was hoping it might inspire some of you to reconsider the stuff in your basement. And now I'm going to ask Kat to talk a little bit about something Avenidas is doing, because we were chatting right before this call. And I thought, oh, that's kind of relevant. So I'm going to should I turn off the screen share? Is that what I should do, Kat?
Yeah, if you'd like.
Okay, so let me stop the share. I can
always talk with it going. So this Sunday, as some of you may know, we are doing the Aveninus Lifetimes of Achievements. And I have the privilege to be a part of that and to help with it. And so I was able to listen in as the supervisor, Joe Smidian, was rehearsing some of the things that he'll say about these lovely people. And it was really incredible what some of them had achieved, because it just, you only have so long on this planet, but they have gone from, some of them have been, just in California. Most of them have traveled all over the place. And it's incredible to see, especially the Newcomans, who started in Belgium and then, bounced around throughout the world and, landed here, where they have done so much good. I mean, all of them are on boards, and they're, some of them have foundations that they've started, and they have given everything that they have to just giving to other people, to making sure that, others can have a good quality of life. And that's kind of their legacy. And so it's really interesting to see, a lot of these stories, Joe Smidian started from, where they were born, where they were raised, and then on through their lives. And it was really beautiful to kind of see it like span out like that. So it made me sort of reflect on, what my life would look like, and what everyone else's lives would look like, just think of it through that lens. Like, you might not think it's really interesting at first, but someone else will say, wow, look at everything that you've done. So thank you, Liza. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk about that.
You're welcome. And now that we all feel thoroughly intimidated, I'll just go back to my story. Right. So now that I've asked you a few questions and given you a framework of time, talent, and treasure, I thought it might be useful for us to all just take a few minutes. It doesn't have to be 10. I think maybe 5. Let's say 5. And just consider, like, in which bucket do you feel drawn? What would it be that, if you could just imagine, let's not dwell on the practical right this second, okay? Let's go practical in a little bit. Let's just spitball it. Let's just say, if you could do it, regardless of how hard that might be, what would it be, and what would you like to give? Who do you want to give it to, and why do you want to give it? And then we can come back together, and if I'm hoping that people will be brave enough to share. And then I have some more things to talk about. So I'm going to set my timer, because I'm super impatient. And so 5 minutes seems like 100 years to me. So I think I better set the timer so that I'm honest about it. And that's what I'm going to do. So go think. We'll reconvene in a few minutes.
Liza, if someone has something to share before the time is up, should they just raise their hand or say something aloud?
Let's just give ourselves the privilege of 5 minutes of quiet, and then after that, people can let you know.
Okay.
That's kind of loud. Would people like more time? You know, if people want more time, put your hands up. Or is, I know, well, I mostly can't see people. So the 3 or 4 people I can see, nobody put their hands up. So, okay, so maybe we can come back together and hi, Marcia, you just turned on your camera. So takes a little getting used to, you know, like, I wish we could all be in the same room. I think this would be fun. So, is there anybody who would like to go first? And if not, I'm willing to fly into the breach to model what I'm hoping we can do. So Judy wants to go.
Judy.
Okay, so can you unmute yourself? Or do I have to?
Oh, hold on, Judy. You're still muted. There we go.
Okay.
I think she's still muted.
Yeah, she is. I asked her to unmute, so hopefully.
We could hold up a sign.
Judy, you're muted.
I think she knows. She's just trying to figure out how to unmute.
Sorry.
Okay.
There you
There
go.
she goes.
Good job.
I have what I call a legacy box. It's a one of those big plastic containers for storage. And I have one for myself and one for my husband, and it's in the garage. And anytime I think of something I want my family, my children and grandchildren to have, pictures, awards, anything I want them to know about me, I put in this legacy box. And when I die, they'll find out who I am.
So how do you put it in there? Do you label it? Do you attach anything, or just dump it in there?
Actually, no, I've just thrown everything in there. I really haven't looked at it for a long time, and I really should go over it periodically just to familiarize with myself with what's in there. Yeah. But that's sort of my legacy, and that will be for my children and grandchildren.
That's great.
The other thing I've done when I was in my 60s, I got into genealogy, and I have a computer full of ancestors that I need to figure out how to get out of the computer and put in some form that my children and grandchildren can use when they become interested in their ancestry, because sometimes you don't really get interested in your ancestry until you're well over 50. And then you want to know a lot about your ancestors.
You just lost me at a computer full of ancestors. Like, oh my God, that's like, what a phrase.
So those are my things that I have to give.
That's fantastic. Who else would like to share? Ready? Okay, Barbara. Go.
I'm happy to. Just a quick comment on Judy's boxes. My mother-in-law did a similar thing, but she had one box for each of her children, and actually wanted to go through it while she was alive and hand it off to the children, so that between the two of them, they could remember the specific details of these photos and things. Because sometimes what I find is we go through these treasures, but we don't really know enough of the details about the specifics of who's in the photo, et cetera. So it might be something you want to go through with your family and share the knowledge.
Well, that reminds me of something. When I was a child, I used to see many photos and the backs were blank. And I made a vow to myself, I'll never have a blank photo in my house. They all have dates and labels on them on the back.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I can share that I have written my kids a birthday letter most of the years of their lives that I have sealed and just thrown in a folder, one for each of them.
Oh, they didn't get it yet.
No, I'm not going to give it. I was going to give it to them when they turned 21, but my daughter's 25 and I'm still doing it. So now I'm thinking maybe I won't give it to them until I die, or I don't know.
Wow.
It's been, but the thing is, I've missed a bunch of years because it's insane raising children and running a small business. And I kind of, there were a few years I missed. And so my rule with that is I just sit down and I write it. I don't read it. After I print it, I just fold it up, stick it in an envelope, put the year on it, and throw it in the file, because I want it to be like a spontaneous picture of them that year. So this class has made me realize, like, I've let that fall away, and that I would like to continue to do it. And the reason I was thinking that it's so important for me is, for me, it's a ritual that allows me to like step out of the stream of this day-to-day concerns and like take a minute to realize that my time with them is limited, because it's hard to remember that, you know, when you're just busy driving them to soccer practice or whatever. And it's a simple thing, right? It doesn't require anything in particular except maybe a half an hour.
Yeah.
You know, and somehow you know, when they were babies, I took a picture of them every Thursday, and I have books of that too from like the first couple of years. Because just they change so much from week to week when they're infants, right? And then after a while, you're like another 3-year-old. And so I kind of stopped doing that. But I love those books too, because they're just these like snapshots in time. But what's valuable about them is the time. right? It's not like any particular letter, right? It's all of the letters. And of course, at any given moment when I write them, I don't know what's going to happen next, right? And so there's the value of like the surprise. And so this class has made me realize that it's important. That's an important thing. And I'm sorry that I stopped. And so I want to pick that back up where I left off. Also, I have to type them because like my children can't read my handwriting, apparently. And I just spent I spent a day throwing away all of my mother's papers. She died 10 years ago, but her husband just passed. And so we have to clean up the house. And she had all these meticulous files of all these trips they took because they traveled all over the world. But like no one can read my mother's handwriting, including me. And so the notes were like, I'm glad she took them for herself, but like for me, they didn't have any meaning because they were just like, I can't even tell what country you were in. It's Croatia or Vietnam or Russia or China, I don't know. So those all I tossed sort of sadly, but I thought the value in those was that they were her own experiences, but they weren't so easy to share. Okay, so that's my take on things.
Karen looks like she had something to share. Go ahead, Karen.
So I wanted to say that I think I'm doing a fairly good job with photo evidence because I do scrapbooks and things like that for my children. But then I was thinking with what Liza presented of sort of bigger issues. And I've been involved for some decades with Medaka no Gakko, which is a K-6 summer school program for Japanese American culture. I don't know if you can tell from my background, but I'm biracial, married to a Japanese, and I myself have a Japanese parent and a Caucasian parent. But the school brings in a lot of multiracial children because of Northern California. And this is 4th and 5th generation sometimes. And the aim is a cultural program. So when it wasn't COVID, we brought in wrestlers, sumo wrestlers, archers, ikebana thing. And I thought, you know, this is important to me. I've been involved for many years, and I need to make sure this program keeps going. My children all went through, they're now 38, 35, 33. But now my son, who's a high school teacher, is a 3rd grade teacher there during the summer. And I think, and I'm hoping my grandchildren will go there too. And it's not restricted to people of Japanese American descent. There's Chinese American mixtures, white children. It's just for appreciation of Japanese culture. And I thought, wow, this is important. And it's been my volunteer effort more for my family. And then I'm thinking, you know, it affects probably 100, 150 children and their families. And so I should not only think about my volunteer efforts, but in terms of, Liza, money and support and, you know, the future going forward. And I'm thinking, I have a whole library of books, Japanese American stories that I loan to them each summer. But this is a place where they can go because my 3 children may not want them. So I like your idea of thinking broadly about what you have to give and what impact you can make on not just your family, which is really important, but also others that could benefit. I like Kat's comment about giving, what did you say? Oh, giving to other people so others can have a good quality of life. I thought, wow, you know, I have to think about it now that I'm 69 or 70. And it's hard because it means you're thinking about the end of your own life. And as my husband said, we have less time to live now than we have behind us. And I thought, whoa, thank you, Ted. That's a terrible way to look at it. But, you know, we do have to think of the time allotted, as again, Kat pointed out. You have a finite amount of time, and it may come upon you suddenly. So, sorry, I rambled.
Don't be sorry. Are you kidding? This like completely made my day, because the idea of this class was to help kind of unlock that creativity in all of us, you know. And I think it's great that you're realizing that you've already put so much into this school, and now you can benefit them in the future. So that's a beautiful story. No apologies allowed. Who else would like to share?
Can I just add a comment or two?
Yeah.
So when you said, when Karen said it makes her realize, you know, that she's lived more lives and years than she has ahead of her, I view sort of the broad topic of estate planning as not just here's what happens at death, but what do you want to give of time, of talent, of treasure during life? And you can't give time at death. So at death is going to be mostly the treasure that you're giving out, but that you don't wait until then to make the gifts. You give the time that you have now. And I don't want to jump ahead in the line, but I sort of accidentally got invited to join the Avenidas board 9 years ago. And I thought, okay, that's good for me to do. I've never been on a board. I should do that. And I had, up until that point, helped them with their financial conferences. So I thought, well, this is me giving my time and my talent. And I stayed on the board a lot longer than I had planned. So it's much more time than I had planned. But along the way, I love the fact that it's a wonderful organization. Some of you heard I have a 92-year-old mom that I'm with right now in New York. And Avenida's doing so much for seniors in California. It makes me a better daughter taking care of my mom, being exposed to Avenidas. So it's not all me giving to others. I'm getting a lot out of it too. But it's, you know, I can support Avenidas financially a little bit during my life and potentially more at my death when I'm done with my assets. But it's just nice to be able to say, I'm not doing it just to check a box in my life resume. I'm doing it because I feel like I'm making a positive difference, and I feel like they're worthy of the limited time that I have, and I'm getting something out of it. And besides joy, just, you know, learning again to be a better daughter. So to me, the time, talent, treasure kind of all blends together sometimes. And also the time horizon is, to me, more of a continuum. It's now through the rest of my life and then at death, not just what do I want to do now as separate from what I want to do at death. So thanks for letting me jump the line.
Yeah, is there anyone who hasn't contributed up to now that would like to say anything?
Christine, I think Christine Helwick.
Yes, out there in the great outdoors there.
I created a Google Doc file that both my kids have access to a while ago that's entitled When I Die. And it's a place where I put all the legal stuff in there, the will and the, you know, advanced care directive and all that kind of stuff, the passwords, the bank accounts, all that kind of stuff. But I also put in a short autobiography and some of the genealogy information that others of you have mentioned about my family. And then I have a legacy letter in there, which is basically the things I would like them to remember about me in terms of intangible values rather than things. I have information in there about, you know, in my demise, you know, I like to sleep on my side, you know, I like to listen to this kind of music. I mean, everything you can think of that, that I've picked up from various books I've read that would be useful to them as I decline and then when I'm gone. And they have access to it all the time. And it's actually a good repository for me because you can just update it from time to time and, you know, have it all in one place.
Are you by any chance an engineer?
No, I'm a lawyer.
That would be my other guess. That's fantastic. You know, I work with all kinds of people, and a lot of my engineering clients will come in with like very organized life records. That's what I was wondering, you know, because because all of that is such a gift in a different kind of way to people when you pass or as you decline, as clearly you know, but it can be very difficult for people to care for others when they don't know where their accounts are, when they don't know what the passwords are, when they don't know where the documents are, they don't know what the preferences are. So I completely love that idea of a Google Doc that's accessible just to the people that you make it accessible to. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
And I think Marcia had something to share as well, correct?
I want to talk about time. I have 6 grandchildren now, and I had made a commitment to their parents before they were born that I have yet to live up to. And that is that I would take all of my grandchildren together for a week in the summer so their parents could go off without them. And they could get cousin time, because I have 2 children, they each have 3, and the first ones are 3 of them within 3 months, a pair of twins and another. And then, so they're all within 6 years of each other, 6 children. And I just think they would have, they live a half a country apart and they don't get to see each other nearly often enough. So I thought that would be really fun. And I read an article recently that made me rethink what I would do when I had them together. The youngest is only 6 months old, so we haven't started this, they got to be weaned first. Is that I could do the things I love. I've already taken the oldest 2 dancing, and I would love to teach them all to dance. But the idea of even teaching the business skills, that we could do a lemonade stand, we could do something entrepreneurial, make something and sell it, and that hadn't occurred to me before, that we could teach not only fun things but actually things that teach skills as well. Looking forward to that. I had just the 3 local ones for a long weekend over Memorial Day, which is when their parents' anniversary is. And I grew up on a farm in Iowa. And one of the things that was delightful for me there was creeks. I didn't see an ocean until I was in my 20s, but we had creeks. And creek walking is something I took my children to do back in Iowa. And we went to Stevens Creek and walked the creek with these 3 little children, and it was magical. So to be able to share those kinds of pieces of my childhood with them.
I want to go to that camp. I want to go to cousin camp. That sounds great.
I'll have to rent a van to be able to see all of them. They don't all fit in my car.
Yeah. Do you think it would be something like an annual event, something like that?
Yeah.
So you guys should do a yearbook.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Right? And then you could have like every year of cousin camp.
Yes.
Because they're all going to change so much the next, 15 years.
One year for Christmas, I did a photo album. My grandmother name is Mushka. And so it was Mushka and me. And so it's pictures of all the fun things we had done together over the year and pictures of them with me. And I did it for each of they were then 3-year-olds. And that was so much fun. But now it was a hard book. And the one in Illinois is absolutely in shatters. The pages have been turned so much. Now I do just virtual ones, but it would be fun it's so easy now to print a book that we could do.
You could just make it like cousin camp yearbooks. Anyway, I don't know. That just seemed like an easy thing that would capture those moments in these like tiny little ways that will be meaningful later. So this is great. I feel like you guys are giving me a present. Give me more. Anybody else that wants to share an idea they have, and if not, I have a few more slides that we can think about together. So anybody else want to share now, or everybody feeling kind of shy? Okay.
I have one other practice that I hope will be a legacy, but I haven't announced it as such. But every year on my birthday, I give my children a dollar amount that's equivalent to my age. And the request is that they have to give it to a charity of their choice. And then they're only, the only expectation is that they'll let me know who they gave it to. So I'm hoping that when I'm gone, after they've done this for many years, that might be something that they will remember me by. But I haven't mandated that.
Well, at the risk of talking too much, I just wanted to throw out something else that is another easy idea that you might consider. But so we celebrate Hanukkah at my house, and it's 8 days, which is a lot of presents. So the last day we call it Tzedakah night, which is we each pick an organization that we want to support, and the kids had explained why they picked what they picked, and it was always interesting what they picked. It wasn't always things I knew about, like ProPublica or Planned Parenthood or something to protect women in the gaming industry. It didn't matter as long as it was a charity. And we set up a little donor advised fund. So that's the bucket of charity money we use. And so the kids help us figure out where to send it this year. So again, these are like small incremental teaching things that bring meaning to just a festival that we're already doing. So let me just, if it's okay, I wanted to just touch on one other thing, which is, if it was hard for all those people who didn't want to share, if it was hard to share, then the question I have for you is, so what's getting in the way, right? Because I know that feeling too, of like, there's something I want to do and I just can't seem to get it done. And then the inner work is, well, what's in the way there? So I thought of a few things that might be in the way. So one is feeling like you don't have enough to give. And there, I think that conversation is about that sense of inner lack, right? Where does that come from, right? Because we live in this incredibly rich material environment. So on some rational level, we all have plenty to give. We have food, we have clothing, we have shelter, but so many of us don't feel generous yet. Right? Because I know that feeling of like, I can't really do that thing because I feel like if I do, maybe I won't have enough. And so if that's something that's you feel like getting in the way, then maybe it's a good time to do a little thinking about that. And I do a podcast and I interviewed a Buddhist teacher about the practice of generosity in Buddhism. And she talked about living in Thailand, and the monks are supported by community donation, right? So they only eat what the local people give them to eat every day. They have nothing. And she said the people there were so poor, and it made them so happy to give what little they had to support the monastic community. That really touched her forever. And so, I think if you feel that way, I'm not judging you at all. I'm saying, yeah, I know that feeling too. But it can get in the way of generosity. It can get in the way of realizing that you can actually give things and still have enough food, enough shelter, enough clothes, enough warmth, enough money. So that could be a place that we could talk about together. Another one is sort of feeling shy, not knowing what people would want, feeling shy about giving them anything, right? Because it's sort of like, am I giving in a way that's not asking for a return? And, does my grandkid really want that watch or that story, or do they really want to go to cousin camp? So like maybe you feel a little shy. And so if that's the case, could you practice by having a conversation with one person that feels safest, and you might find out, I know a lot of people I work with find out that people are actually usually really open to these conversations. The context it comes up in my practice is people will say, oh, I can't ask my friend to be my agent under power of attorney. It's so much work. And I'll say, why don't you ask them? Or I can't ask my niece. It's often people without kids, right? So they have to ask a friend or a niece or something. And they usually come back and say, oh man, they said they would be honored to do it. And then they learn something about each other. So if you're feeling shy, maybe push yourself to start out small and just talk to one safe person. And then if you're not sure how to go about it, it's just overwhelming, right? It's just like, oh my God, like I don't even know how to start. So I'm trying to give you some scaffolding there. The buckets, right? Time, treasure, talent is one. But another thing is maybe we could offer some actually concrete skills. And so I thought about that. I thought, well, what tools do you need to make this baby idea real? And I thought, do you want help writing? I know a lot of people are shy about writing. Do you need some help, some skills around writing family history or memoir or legacy letters, I think as Christine put it? Do you want some help learning how to make tax-efficient charitable gifts? Because if you do, we're all over that here at Avenidas. I can absolutely put together with Barbara a class on that. Do people want help with ways of organizing and cataloging things, right? There's a lot of tools out there now that can make jobs like that simpler, both digitally and, printed out. And so I thought, if some of the holdups here are actually these kinds of skills, maybe what could come out of this workshop or some courses, maybe they're just one-time classes on writing a legacy letter or getting started with cataloging and organizing, or how to make tax efficient gifts or other kinds of gifts. I mean, I don't mean just tax efficient, but I mean, how do you leverage the assets you have to help organizations that you love in the way that Karen was talking about? So those are my thoughts and for, a further conversation with the time that we have left, if anybody has anything to say about any of that. Crickets.
Oh,
anybody? Yeah.
Judy. As long, I think you might just need to unmute.
I did.
Okay, there we go.
I guess I would like to know about a legacy letter, how to go about doing something like that. I'm kind of a person that doesn't really put myself out there because I don't think people are interested. So I guess you call me shy. And I need to know step by step on how to do things. That's my problem.
Okay. That's awesome. Anybody else?
But we had some good ideas here. I've got a few notes to tide me over.
Anybody else?
Lisa, I think the continuation of how tools is just great. For me personally, I really care about sharing the family stories, but the stumbling block or the big rock that I trip over is it takes so long to write that I'm comfortable scrawling and they won't read the writing, won't be able to read the writing, but I'm not skilled enough at, what was this? I'd love to do a Google Doc file as someone mentioned, but I have no idea where to start or how to do that. And but again, a way to write the family story so it doesn't take my whole life, and so they will be able to read it, because now it just would take too long of my remaining time. And the other stumbling blocks, were they able to read the writing? Would they look at it anyway? Do they have room? Where would I store it, et cetera, et cetera? So I think what you mentioned is a continuation of maybe workshops or sessions on some of the ideas that were shared would be just terrific and really helpful.
Great. Hey, Roberta, can I ask you a question? Do you think that using something on your computer where you just talk and it turns it into transcribes that would be something that you could use?
I have tried that, but it was not recently, but it was talking like this, and you can't share. I mean, if there's another way, I don't know about it.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking. I mean, that technology, I dictate notes all the time when I talk to clients, and I just talk like this and it gets it just about perfectly. Well, and that's in Microsoft Word. I didn't even have to buy it. So good. So maybe some tools to make it easier to transcribe memories.
There you go. See, I don't know what is available where and how. And
no.
Is it free or does it cost or,
Yeah. So class 3 is going to be, I sort of envision on somehow, right? And so this is really good. It's helpful because we have a month, to put this together. So what else would people like to help with to get their, like I said, their baby idea out in the world?
The idea of the Google Doc with When I Die is so helpful, and to possibly have an outline of all the things that you might think about putting in there to get us started would be fabulous.
Yes, that'd be great. Yeah.
Hey, Christine, you want to do a workshop? She's like, no.
No, but I will share that my autobiography is about 3 pages long. I mean, you don't have to write everything.
It's not the autobiography. It's the all the passwords and all those things that you put in.
Yeah.
Just an outline of all those items would be very helpful.
I can send you an index of what's in mine if you're interested.
Perfect. That would be so helpful.
I would love to receive that too.
Actually, Christine, if you would send it to me, I'll make it part of our 3rd class.
Great. That'd be great. That'd be wonderful. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have any other stumbling blocks that they would like to talk about? I mean, don't be shy. I'm guessing that if you're out there and you're just like, I don't even have any ideas, probably other people feel the same way, and we could do a little workshopping and try to help, with the stumbling blocks.
A lot of several stumbling blocks while we were at 5 minutes. Their time is way more limited than mine is at present. Their interest, questioning, they've got their other passions and joys. And why would they want to add on mine or even, open up mine, their space compared with mine, in their life stages? They are at making, they're driven by different purposes than I am at my life stage. So those are all huge mental, psychological, emotional stumbling blocks for me, apart from physical space.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump in?
For me, time is an issue in that maybe it's priority, really, because I love being with people and doing things with people. And so sitting and organizing and writing on the back of my photos, that just never gets to be a very high priority.
Oh, totally. But I don't think that we're just talking about archiving, right? I think what you were talking about with Cousin Camp is also an experience that you're giving them and memories that you're creating with them. And that's just as valid as a photo album. I mean, don't limit yourself to physical. That's the thing. I mean, I think in the first class, when we talked about things that people gave us, they weren't always things, right? They were experiences, they were memories, they were songs, right? The time I went out dancing with my crazy grandmother, right? So again, I think that's a perfectly valid comment, right? Like, I actually hate that too. It's like, I'm on the computer all day long. I mean, the last thing I feel like doing is more of that when I get some time off. But again, I mean, and I guess it speaks a little bit to what Roberta was saying, I think that we're in a culture that devalues age, that devalues wisdom, that devalues time, and you don't, and I guess I wanted to give you back. I mean, this is sort of getting at, I don't have anything to give. It's like, just you right now, just the way you are, have plenty to give. And how you give it is going to be individual to you. If you hate scrapbooking, then don't scrapbook. Right? Like, that's why I write those letters, right? Because that's fun for me. I get a kick out of it, right? I get energy from that. When I look at a bunch of pictures I have to put in an album, I want to shoot myself. So, I mean, not literally, but metaphorically. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have I spent a year and a half with my mom during the pandemic and recognizing she had Alzheimer's. And she started telling me a story, and my brothers don't get to hear it. And I finally, I held up my iPad so she couldn't see it because she doesn't want to be filmed necessarily. But I got the story from her, and I tried to email it to my brothers because they're living in other parts of the country and Canada, but they're too big, they don't go. And so I can't, the only thing I know of is to wait until they come and visit sometime in the next few years and then remember to show it to them. I don't know how to give that to them because the files are too big or something.
So you could make a YouTube channel that just has those videos, and then you could always make them private or unlist them so no one else can see them, and then you can send that to them. It's a fairly straightforward process. You just need to make an account and verify the account, and then you just take the file and you drag and drop it, and then YouTube does the rest and it uploads it, and then you just have to choose what you want, and then that way you can share that with them that way. That's how I know. Yeah.
So so maybe that's like the avenue to StoryCorps, right? Maybe you could, you know, capture family stories and share them in a way. And, you know, I know you think it's simple to set up a YouTube channel, but that also makes me want to kill myself. So, so maybe that's a workshop, right? Because like sometimes the simplest things get in the way. I mean, like right now I'm launching a bunch of online courses, and, you know, it took me like 2 hours to do an Instagram post where my 25-year-old was like laughing her head off. She does it in 30 seconds. And I was like, that was my entire Saturday, right? Because every little thing didn't work and I didn't know why. And so StoryCorps, right? But that was something I was thinking about before this class too, which is storytelling, right? Do we want to do a storytelling workshop? Because like not everybody likes to write. You know, of course, the other biggest fear people have is public speaking, right? So it's like out of the frying pan into the fire. But, you know, if you guys would like to set up the Moth Storytelling Hour, storytelling can be this very liberating way of like stepping into a story that you didn't think you had the nerve to tell. You know, so maybe we could do a storytelling workshop, or how to do your own YouTube channel, just like looking for ideas, you know, would that be a way to share if you don't like to do photo albums or write letters, you know?
You could make a zip file too. That'd be easy.
Yeah, you could compress it, or you could send them a thumb drive in the mail, right? That's easy. That just on a, you know, like those are cheap now, gigabytes of space on a little piece of plastic that you can physically mail to them.
Drive. The thumb drive, I understand. The zip file, I don't. But I think my husband could.
No, but like this is so great because it's these physical things that get in the way of the story, right? So like we could help. We can help with that.
Oh yeah.
So this is great. So we have about 2 minutes left before this hour is over. So is there anybody else who hasn't had a chance to speak? I'm so curious about you, Harry, because your camera's on, but you haven't said anything. Hi, Harry. So if not, then I want to thank you all for bravely jumping into here and participating and sharing in ways that are sometimes personal and hard. We're going to get together in October, and I'm gonna, I've been taking notes about things that people want to know. I don't think we can cover all of it in one session, but I think maybe we could think about the legacy letter together and then make a plan for what we want to learn next. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah.
Great. Well, that makes me happy because now I know what to do.
Yes,
because
we have a plan.
We're making this up together. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming, and I wish you a happy fall. And you can always reach out to me at liza.hanks@gmail.com. That's the email I'm using for these workshops. And I'm happy to answer questions if I can. So take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you on October 29th.
No.
Friday.
And please don't come in costume. That would upset me.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm very sure about that. No costumes allowed. Take care.
Thanks, Liza. Thanks, Kat.
Bye.
Wonderful. Good.